Right then, this is the Sky Bet League 2 playoff final recap, and Notts County thumped Salford by 3-0. He's George Ellick, I'm Ali Maxwell. This is not the Top 20 podcast. It's sponsored by Sky Bet and the Sky Bet EFL Building Foundations Fund. George, the League 1 and League 2 playoff finals both decided by 3 goals. Seems certainly unusual, but in different ways, in that the Bolton-Stockport game was not a 4-1 game, if you like, and we've detailed that on the recap show for that game. But Notts 3, Salford 0. Salford can't really have any arguments here, can they? It was, I mean, without saying that Notts didn't dominate, didn't absolutely shellac Salford with 50 shots and 20 shots on target, but comfortably the better side almost from the off and winning cosily.
Yeah, I mean, Salford will feel like this was a huge opportunity missed. And, you know, when you look at the stats, you see that both teams had 7 shots. Alassane Jatta's goal to put Notts County 1-0 up was a bit of a jolt into what had been a bit of a non-event up to that point. The first half an hour of the game kind of fizzled out without any real, quite a lot of fouls. Some very good moments from Jody Jones, who was the best player on the pitch on the day. But it wasn't like it was relentless pressure from Notts County that finally found a way through. It was just a real moment of quality from Jones with a brilliant through ball, perfectly weighted that Jatta ran onto to finish. And at that point, I guess you're probably thinking, given the state of the game and given what's at stake, that Salford would come back into it, having also having gone behind against Grimsby in the first leg, come back and won the game 2-1, but they didn't really. They Notts County, without creating loads, kind of continued to control possession, looked relatively untested by Salford. And then found a second goal just before half-time, a bizarre goal where a free kick was swung in after a pretty nasty challenge from Haji Minoga. And McDonald's, knocked back into the box, came down with snow on it on a very hot day. And Ness was there to head home. A kind of strange-looking training ground set-piece routine that I don't think necessarily is meant to look like that, but certainly worked. Before Jody Jones, the star player of the day, made the point safe and won the game 3-0. I mean, it was, a pretty jeopardy-free, amazing day in the sun for Notts County fans, who thankfully for them were given the shaded part of Wembley, and the Salford fans who were all put in a pretty small section of the stadium, all in the sun. It couldn't really have gone worse. Even imagining as badly as it could have gone, I don't think they could have expected to be beaten 3-0 and basically not threatened to score throughout the whole game.
They barely laid a glove on them. And it's interesting thinking back to how we previewed this game, a couple of things that we highlighted. Salford play very direct, and in particular Luke Garbett plays a lot of their forward passes. And Notts County's opposite man to Garbett, if you like, Tom Yorpender, who's the right-sided number 10, his physical attributes, sensational, and his ability to cover ground, sensational, his ability to press, brilliant. And as predicted, they made sure that Garbett did not have much time on the ball to pick out big diagonals. And when he did, and this is crucial, the back line of Rod McDonald, Lucas Ness and Jacob Badeau were sensational, as they were for the whole of these playoffs. Rod McDonald, 8 wins out of 8 in the air. Lucas Ness, 8 wins out of 9 in the air. Jacob Badeau, 7 wins out of 9. Salford thrive on either winning the first ball or being very good at picking up the pieces in the second ball. And the mixture of Notts County's shape and their aerial strength meant that we never saw anything threatening come from those situations. Salford had set pieces and looked very unthreatening from their set pieces. And there was no other attack generation from Salford City at all. And it's hugely disappointing to watch, but also not that surprising. Like, they didn't have that much to their attacking game. And I hope that doesn't sound harsh, but we pretty much highlighted it. And if you were to cut off the main supply, then they were always likely to struggle. I noticed that Haji Minoga had the most touches of any Salford City player. It did not take a rocket scientist, hence why I was able to preview this. It did not take a rocket scientist to predict that they would cut off any supply to Garbett and Brandon Cooper, who's the better ball-playing centre-back, and funnel everything towards Haji Minoga and say, yeah, as long as you're on the ball, we're happy, because we don't see how you're going to pierce our shape here. So I wanted to bring up that I think from a Notts point of view, the unit itself has been immaculate, basically, for 2 semi-finals against Chesterfield and the final. The backline in particular doing what they needed to do to win their duels and to defend their box brilliantly. But we like talking about individuals as well, and it's a Notts team with loads of good stories here, George. Why don't you talk and expand a bit more on Jody Jones? Some of his touches in the first period were absolutely sensational. He gets the assist for the first goal. It's his set-piece delivery that leads to the second goal, and then he scores the third goal.
I think were there 3 or 4 nutmegs in the first 15 minutes from Jones as well, all taking place right in front of the dugout of Carl Robinson, who was his manager in what was, after many years of being out through injury. When Jones left Coventry, went to Oxford, it was meant to be the kind of rebirth of his career. And under Robinson, he barely played. And I would imagine that this would have been incredibly sweet for him. I think if you could have told him during some of those darkest days that in a couple of years he'd be at Wembley putting in, the man of the match performance, scoring a goal, getting an assist against a Carl Robinson side in the League Two playoff final, I think would have made him quite happy. He was fantastic throughout. Like, he's clearly, his delivery and his technical ability is just better than the level. He's not fast. Quite often when he beats a man, he can't kind of go past him using any kind of pace because he doesn't really have it. But in terms of the creative ability that he's got and the technician and the way that he can create chances and the way that he can keep the ball and the way that he can use skill to beat a player is so impressive. He made headlines last season with the ridiculous assist numbers. It's been quieter this time around. But there's no doubt that the star man and the best player on the day was Jody Jones. I'm delighted for him to have that day.
Yeah, he set up Jata for the first goal, and it was a first half low on shots all round, but Jata had been sprung in behind once or twice, and that is another tactical aspect to bring up, is that Salford have played with a pretty high press and a pretty high line all season. That's the way that they play out of possession. And Jata's a really tough opponent if that's your game. He is quicker than Salford centre-backs, and he is also big and tall, and although he's not aerially dominant by any means, he's awkward at his best. And we saw that bear fruit for Notts. Turning it in behind a couple of times. Jata, he ran clear at one point on the right side of the box and kind of delayed and didn't get his shot off. It can be a frustrating part of Jata's game. And look, we're talking about a League Two striker, and you should always make the point that these guys are not complete strikers, otherwise they wouldn't be playing in League Two. But Jata gets the first goal. It's a calm, composed finish. I think a few people would have liked to see the goalkeeper, Matty Young, get down a bit quicker, maybe get a stronger hand to it. But it was a nice, composed finish after being played through by Jody Jones. Definitely poor from both Salford centre-backs. And this is, Jata himself is a great story. Notts County, as most people will know, very interesting way that the club is run, heavily data-driven. It comes from the very top, from the owners, who are pretty explicit in how they want to do things. And one of the features of that has been their happiness signing players from overseas, where other teams in League Two just don't bother. Ruben Rodriguez was their first great success in that market, but Jata has to be held up as one of the better lower league signings of the last few years. Signed from Viborg in the Danish Superliga, certainly not an expensive signing for League Two level, and has scored at over 0.5 non-penalty goals per 90 from the moment he joined the club. Scored the opener in the playoff final, and as an individual like Jones, with his body of work at Notts County, this is a promotion that feels very much deserved from his point of view. And it'd be interesting to see whether there's further interest in Jata, as there has been previously, but it seems to kind of quieten down a little bit this season. He's 27, I think he is, so an interesting one to watch over the summer. How about James Belshaw? Look, no secret that we're big fans of James Belshaw. He was actually an NTT20 guest co-host this season when you were out at the Ryder Cup, and he did a brilliant job. That's when he was playing for Harrogate. Now he plays for Notts County, the team that he supported as a boy. That story is pretty touching, isn't it?
It means we've, in consecutive years, received a bear hug from a recently promoted League Two friend of the pod, as they either go up or come back from lifting the trophy. So I don't know who it's going to be next season. Really delighted for him. I mean, it's just it's such a great story. You know, a guy who is a Notts County fan, whose family are Notts County fans, and is released from his boyhood club at aged 14 back in 2005, and builds a career, having gone out to Duke in America, builds a career in non-league in English football, helps bring Harrogate into the EFL, wins a promotion with Bristol Rovers, and was a key player in that too. But then at a time in his career when he's at Harrogate and Harrogate are fighting relegation out of the EFL, Notts County, have bypassed them now, having previously been in non-league whilst Harrogate were in the EFL. It probably would have felt to him like his opportunity to play for Notts County was passing him by. But instead, in January, they sign him and he is the starting goalkeeper for the second half of the season, and was relatively untested at Wembley on Monday. We're not going to dress it up and pretend that he was the man of the match or anything like that, but he made some big saves, big moments over the course of the second half of the season. And to put it very bluntly, he is living the dream for football fans. He is playing for the club that he loves at the end of his career, winning a promotion and playing a part in that. And I cannot imagine how it must feel for him. I cannot imagine how it must feel for his family. Just such a great story, a great man. And I'm sure they'll be looking forward to life in League One next season, where he'll be their starting keeper again. I have no doubt.
This episode is brought to you by SumUp.
Ali, as business owners, we've used SumUp before, haven't we?
Yes, we have. When we sold merch at our live show in Sheffield, we used SumUp's brilliant payment solutions product to take payments for masses of sales of our wonderful T-shirts and caps and mugs. But we've also both been sole traders for many years now, and making sure we're ready and covered when it comes to tax is crucial.
Yes, because making tax digital for income tax is now live in the UK, and it's important that sole traders are MTD ready. Since the 6th of April 2026, sole traders earning over a certain amount must keep digital records and submit quarterly updates to HMRC using approved software.
And SumUp has built a free, simple software solution to help sole traders get MTD ready right inside its platform. It's free, there's no monthly fee, and getting started is easy. Just search SumUp MTD online to find out more. That's SumUp MTD. Yeah, other players I just want to mention as celebrate good seasons and good players and great playoff performers. Tom Yorpender, we've talked about a lot. Fascinated to see what happens to him next. I mean, you could not have had a better loan for all parties than Tom Yorpender of Huddersfield going to Notts County. It's the second year in a row they've absolutely smashed it with a loan after they had George Abbott last season on loan from Spurs. Yorpender played in tons of different midfield roles, looked pretty good in all of them, ended up as the right-sided number 10. Is the sort of player that can impact the game in lots of different ways because of his sensational athleticism for this level, and also has room to grow on the ball, but has shown some pretty good flashes and has had obviously some very notable goal contributions. The assist in the playoff semi-final first leg, and that magnificent goal he scored, was it against MK Dons, where he received the ball on the turn with a swivel, with a nutmeg, with a carry, with a really nice finish. Like, Huddersfield should be so excited to be getting him back, because if he was a League Two club-owned player, anyone at the top of League One would be putting him on their long list for transfers this summer. And I wanted to mention Scott Robertson as well, who's had a bit of an injury-hit season, but he's a player that I really like, and I'm excited for this Notts team to go up with a core group of players that I think can easily be part of a solid League One team. And then obviously with them, you're always interested to see what they do in the transfer market, because they definitely don't tend to sign the obvious ones. They don't tend to sign the predictable ones, shall we say. They try and zag where others zig on that front. So you got Scott Robertson, who was at Celtic as a kid, loans at Gills and Donny and Crewe, and then a year at Fleetwood before joining Notts. And again, it's just injuries that seem to disrupt him quite a lot. But in terms of, both on the ball, he's progressive in his passing when he needs to be, tidy when he needs to be, has got a lot of bite in the tackle and can get around the pitch fairly well. Another, key part of this team. And yeah, Lucas Ness I want to highlight, because I think heading into the playoffs. He probably wouldn't have been held up as Notts County's best defender or most important defender. They've had injuries in that position with Macari and Platt, who may well have been starters had they not got injured near the end of the season. And Ness has stepped up massively in the second leg against Chesterfield, in the final here, dealing with long passes forward, physical strikers, decent on the ball, and then scoring that goal with an incredible leap to put them 2-0 up before half-time, which maybe because of the heat and because of Salford's performance at that time, it felt like 2-0 lead at half-time. The game felt done at that point, basically. And I must admit, I couldn't help but remember the playoff semi-final last year against Wimbledon, where Notts lost 2-0 to a much bigger, stronger, better defensively, better tactically, better suited to winning team in AFC Wimbledon. And the goal in the first leg was Riley Harbottle leaping like a salmon to head home direct from a long throw, unchallenged, unmarked, and it just looked really soft from a Notts point of view. It's the sort of goals that you concede in a playoff game, and it just it's not a good representation of your defence. And Ness's goal felt very similar, and I think it probably sums up, George, the key aspect of Notts County going one better this year compared to last year is there has been a stylistic tweak and a kind of different energy about this team this season, much more focused on zeros and ones and making yourself hard to score against and hard to beat, while retaining some of the attacking threat that they've shown over the last few years pretty consistently. Martin Patterson, therefore, should be getting a huge amount of credit for being the manager to oversee this sort of Notts County 2.0, if you like. And it's the Notts County that have gone where Luke Williams and Stuart Maynard previously didn't, taken them into League One.
Yeah, because it's interesting how they've retained, they're still one of the most possession-heavy teams in League Two. And it felt like under Williams and Maynard's, the playing style was kind of their whole identity was that kind of ball retention aspect. But under Patterson, they've kind of retained the willingness to dominate the ball, and they dominated the ball yesterday, but have added definitely kind of, I don't know, they've sacrificed a bit of that ideology where they have had to. Like we saw, they took the lead very early in the semi-final against Chesterfield, and then basically defended for 180 minutes and did so pretty well, and didn't really, look to continue to play the way that they have done for most of the season. So impressed with them, so impressed with Patterson. It's another lesson not to write someone off because of one perceived failure. Like he took on a job at Burton Albion that's a very tough job. Didn't do badly. Kept them in the division, and but when he left, his stock wasn't particularly high, and I think a lot of Notts County fans weren't overly enamoured when the appointment came, or maybe just a bit underwhelmed. But he's delivered at the first time of asking, and I'm sure a part of that will be what he learned in the Burton job too. So, impressed. A very good appointment in the end. Go back to the summer when people were laughing at the way that they were operating and the way that they were, communicating with the fan base around the way that they were going to be looking to operate a bit differently this year. But people are now not laughing because it's worked and they are promoted.
Yeah, well, they are an unusual club in the way that they operate. There's no doubting that, and I don't think they would even deny that. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, is it? Sometimes being different can be a strength, and I think when you consider where the club was when the Reeds brothers took over, when you consider that their rise from National League to League One has not been built on supercharging the finances of the club and buying players on eye-watering wages for the level just to try and keep the party going. This is being done in a much more slower, incremental way, and maybe doesn't have the fireworks of a Wrexham, or maybe even a Stockport would be more comparable. But it's still it's a hell of a club, really, mate. Like 10,000 attendances in League Two this season. That'll be top 10 in League One next season. Like for Notts County, I'm feeling pretty excited, if I'm honest. They have a style of play now that I think is very appropriate for moving up a level. They are likely to. They're not going to be a soft touch next season. It would be surprising if they suddenly were terrible defensively and really struggling on that front. They seem to have worked out that with a rotating cast of Jata and Dennis and Unlove, if you can have enough players at the top of the pitch who offer, physical profile and ideally some goal scoring as well. They'll have to replace players in the number 10 role, and that'll be a key area of recruitment for them, with Jorpenda and Luca both going back. If they can keep Jones and Cerula at wing back, we know that Jones, his delivery is not going to be any less good in League One. Cerula, pretty solid, I would suggest, at League One level. There's plenty in midfield already with Robertson, and they'll probably look to strengthen in that area as well. And yeah, I'm just feeling quite good about them next season, if I'm honest, because I just think everything's lined up really nicely.
Yeah, I think they're well run and the recruitment works. They are like steady in terms of, I think we know there aren't any issues in terms of stability. The only question mark, I guess, is where will they sit budget wise? Like if they decide to kind of keep to the current kind of spending plan, then they're going to have their work cut out, because they'll probably be a bottom third, bottom half budget team, and it's very harsh to expect them to kick on if that's the case. So, but as you mentioned, their recruitment is good, and they are better at finding gems than a lot of other teams around them, and they'll probably be fishing in different waters than a lot of teams around them. So, excited to see what they do. But yeah, I'm in total agreement. Like I think they feel like a rock solid team right now, or who are very much on their way up.
Yeah, busy summer for the recruitment team, and Rich Montague is the director of football, who has had a hell of a season. Working in football must be so crazy. Rich Montague was at Notts County, and previously at Football Radar, and then worked his way up when the Reeds brothers bought the club and became the kind of the conduit there, I think, and director of football, and then got a job at Swansea City, which didn't last very long in the end, and they moved him on in September of this season, and now Rich has gone back to Notts County and taken them up to League One as director of football. So very pleased for him, and it's going to be interesting to see how they go. We'll finish on Salford. George didn't turn up on the big day. It's the repetition of a theme, really, that Salford are always good, but they haven't been great. And they're spending money that suggests they should be great at some point, and they're just falling short. And I think a lot of people's reaction is like, oh, will they sack Carl Robinson because he hasn't taken them up? Will he be the first manager that they actually go, okay, come on, let's hold our nerve, let's go again, let's not rip it up? What do you think's next for Salford City?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they keep Carl or not, because you can look at it two ways. That he hasn't delivered a promotion on a promotion budget, but he's made them a very good team that finished towards the top of the table and got past Grimsby over two legs, a very good Grimsby team. And if things had gone differently on the final day, they easily could have snuck into the top three. So, football isn't black and white. It's not clear lines. Like, you can make a case that Carl's done a pretty good job, but you could also make a case to say that he's failed. So it'll be intriguing to see what the hierarchy there do. I always think it's quite harsh to sack someone after losing a playoff final. It's one game that therefore kind of divides them from being a success or a failure, which I just don't think it's really fair to judge someone that way.
Yeah,
but there's no denying
gives a pen on final day, they go up as third automatically.
Exactly. Yeah, and then he's done an amazing job. Like it's, but there's no denying that the squad is very good. It's a great job to have for someone, because you're going to get provided with the tools to go and achieve. But as Stephen Schumacher said, that comes with its own pressures, because then you're expected to achieve rather than hope to. So all eyes on them. I'm sure they'll be. We don't know quite what the spending power of York is going to be next season. But if York don't go mad, then you have to assume that Salford are going to be the highest budget, number one for spend. So nowhere to hide next season, but they're getting closer. Just can't quite get over the line into League One.
Mate, League Two next season looks absolutely nuts, and looking forward to gathering some thoughts over the summer ahead of the 1-24s. We will still be NTT20 podding over the summer, but possibly a slightly reduced output on account of the fact that George and I also have a podcast called the England Pod, and if you haven't heard about it, this is a good time to do so, because we're going to the World Cup. We're going to be doing a daily show. It's a show about being England fans. It's a show about trying to speak as in-depth as possible as we can about the football side of England and try and understand things with maybe an extra level of depth than you might get elsewhere. But mainly it's about, George, us like having fun, maybe having a terrible time in some ways, and kind of living it all together. And we hope that people will get involved with the journey there.
Yeah, I cannot wait. It's a World Cup, which is exciting. It's England. We're going to be there. We're going to be in daily shows. We're going to be watching games in various bars across the whole country, and we're going to be telling you all about it. So please come along and join us for the ride, and then we'll be back for the knockouts. But hopefully we'll be watching some games with you guys too. So the fun continues just elsewhere.
If you've enjoyed our League Two coverage this season, please take 30 seconds to follow England_pod on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, but also to subscribe to The England Pod on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and on YouTube as well. Let's have a bit of fun this summer. It's been an amazing season in League Two. It ends with promotion for Bromley, for Milton Keynes, for Cambridge, and for Notts County. Very, very worthy winners of the playoffs, doing it without conceding a goal. Thank you for listening. Congrats to Notts fans. Cheers and go well.